Sometimes I talk about mechanics, sometimes I talk about role-playing. Today I'm going to talk about where those two things meet. And it is incredibly windy outside, so this might not be the ideal conditions under which to record a video, but here we go nonetheless, because I can't be arsed to find a better time to do it. So, as the title of this video suggests, we're talking about multiclassing and role-playing your class. So there was a conversation that I had online a little while ago, as is the inspiration for a lot of these videos, where somebody said that you should, like, if you're going to multiclass, you should roleplay the multiclass. In as far as, like, you know, if you're going to be a wizard, you should have a good in-character reason for starting to take levels in wizard if you weren't already. Or, don't take levels in warlock until you make a pact with a eldritch deity, or entity. That kind of stuff. Like, you should have a religious background on your character before you multiclass cleric or paladin, or maybe as you multiclass cleric and paladin start being more religious. And here's my thing, is why I think that position is ultimately indefensible. So multiclassing exists in D&D and in a lot of other games. There's nearly always, any game with groups, themed groups of abilities, there's basically always a way to sort of cross-train through them in order to find this space that exists between the established options. And here's the thing about that. Is that a spider on my windshield? That is not a spider on my windshield. Okay. Just had to be sure. So there's basically always a way to multiclass, and here's the reason why it exists. Because the designers of the game, be it D&D or something else, can't think of every character archetype that could possibly exist or that a player might want to play. They aren't going to be able to mechanically represent every single play style that a player could come up with within the given framework. So what they do is they allow you to kind of build your own. So if I'm multiclassing between fighter and rogue and ranger, what am I? You know? You get what I'm saying? What is that character? He's not a fighter because he has not all fighter levels. He's not a ranger. He's not a rogue. He's something in between. Is there an in-universe description for what he is? Maybe. That would probably be part of your background if there is. Maybe you call yourself a woodland skirmisher. I'm a member of the Order of the Woodland Skirmishers. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe not. Maybe you just have your skills and they develop as you go. The example that I gave in the conversation was what if I'm a warrior whose martial prowess is gained from an external source? Maybe I have an item, an ancestral heirloom that is bestowing upon me martial ability that is not really mine. It is borrowed from some external entity. Do I need to take levels in warlock? Am I a paladin of this item? There isn't really a good way to represent it that is codified in the class structure. The classes have flavor added to them by the designers, by the developers, I should say. Probably not. I couldn't tell you what the difference is between a designer and a developer. I've never been one without being the other. No. So anyways, the developers they put flavor on these classes, some more than others. Fighter, there's not a lot of flavor on fighter. You fight. You are a person who fights. There's not a lot else there. But things like the warlock have a lot of flavor on top of them. The different kinds of pacts, the relationships between the warlock and the patron. These are quite thoroughly explored. Cleric has a very specific idea about where their power comes from. But that is all just suggestions. I don't have to have a deity as a cleric. I can say I'm a different kind of magic user. My powers are mechanically from a cleric class, but I am not actually a servant of a deity. My power is not actually divine. It is arcane, or it is, like the artificer. If I recall correctly, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure they say that although you cast spells, your spells represent using concoctions and inventions and things like that. So, that they basically say, like, you got to reflavor these spells to actually give the artificer fantasy, which is kind of nutty when you think about it. Like, they could have just made it a bunch of concoctions and inventions. Like, they could have made a system for that. They had the ability to do so. The ultimate authority in what goes into this game. You could just do it instead of saying, here, you're a half caster, super lazy, you don't even get any unique spells, you borrow your spells from other classes, pretend that they are actual inventions, pretend you're actually an artificer instead of just a caster. It's so silly. You're half a wizard, good luck. Anyways. So the flavor on these classes is just suggestions. You don't have to multi-class you don't have to roleplay a multi-class. And this has always been true. This is true in D&D, every edition of D&D that has had multi-classing, which I think it has had since basically the beginning. It is true in other games where cross-training is a thing. You are not creating your class. You're creating your character. And here's the thing about that. You can't do it wrong, because any decision you make about your character is canon. If I want to, for a real life example here, have one level of cleric and then the rest of my levels be wizard, because I like to have armor on my wizard, as a warforged, I feel like I should, so the fantasy in my head is I want to be, it is a warforged wizard, but his body is quite durable. Like, he is a tough exterior while also being largely intellectual and sort of having this idea of he's a robot wizard is what he is. And his spells have a tendency to either be like devices that come off of him to go do a thing, or manifestations of the plane of Mechanus, where they're all like machine-like. But I have one level of cleric, and I don't acknowledge, like, I have not at this point acknowledged that he has any kind of like divine connection. He does not serve a deity. But that is the mechanics that I needed to take in order to achieve the vision that I have. Like, he is just a wizard. In universe, he is a wizard. And that's it. He is not a cleric. Even if I have a class of cleric, he is not a cleric. Or a level of cleric, I should say. Those spells are just part of his magical repertoire. Some wizards can cast cure, or can cast healing word. I can. You can't. Whatever. That's, not all wizards are the same. These are the differences between us. Some wizards are able to wear armor. I can wear armor because I am a warforged, because that is what I do. I have, like, the armor is a part of me. Why wouldn't I be able to wear armor? This kind of idea is why multiclassing exists, so that you can hone in on your character idea, and you don't have to worry about, like, a class covering all of the flavor possibilities that you might want in the mechanics, because classes are principally a mechanical construct, not a narrative construct. You don't roleplay a class. You roleplay your character, who has a class mechanically. That just informs you of what you are able to do as far as interacting with the game mechanics, what features you get, what abilities you gain. You don't roleplay a class. You roleplay your character, and you cannot roleplay your character wrong. You are the final authority on how to play your character. So if someone says you're not roleplaying your class correctly, you tell them, take a hike. That's not, that can't be right. It's kind of like how, like, if you are writing your signature and like, oh, well, you didn't write your signature correctly. You can't write it wrong. As long as you're writing your own name and you're the one doing it, it literally can't be wrong. You know? It's like you get to define who your character is and what they do. You cannot roleplay your character wrong. So there's no sense, like, it is a nonsensical thing to say that you should roleplay a multi-class. It's not a thing. Classes do not have role-playing, like, they have role-playing suggestions, but they don't have role-playing requirements, and there isn't a correct way to play any given class. So this is going to be a relatively short video on that, because I think I've gone over everything I needed to say about it. But yeah, the multiclassing is not you being a hybrid of two different things. It is you deciding that these two different things, neither one appropriately defines who your character is as you envision it. And so you must take a mix of the two. And how exactly you mix them is entirely up to you. It is your character. It is your vision. You can't do it wrong. Now, certain types of characters are better supported mechanically than others in some games, you know? The multi-class rule, I've said before, like, this is not any new territory. The multi-class rules in 5e are really, really in favor of spellcasting. They have explicit benefits for multi-classing spellcasters and explicit restrictions for multi-classing weapon users. And it doesn't make any sense. And it's clear favoritism towards spellcasters that doesn't need to be there at all. So, like, there's that issue, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm talking about multiclassing as a general rules concept, as it exists across lots of different games, not just D&D. So yeah, play your character how you want to play it. You can't do it wrong.